Hey there, everybody. This is TJ Fowler for Skullbanger Media here in the hot tropic regions of northern Finland. I'm sitting here today talking with Will Donovan. He is one of the game designers for Folklore the Affliction, which is coming out through Greenbrier Games. It's currently on Kickstarter. I think the funding is still going, but it's been funded successfully so far, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so
That's right.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so Will, thanks a lot for being here with us today. We're going to go over some of the basic things and your wider concepts for the game. But first, let's talk about your role in the game. I know you're just one of several designers, but what did you kind of focus on in the game yourself?
Yeah, so I am one of the co-creators of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with Twin Fire Games. So we partnered with Greenbrier to help bring this to market.
Sure.
And so my role has been from the very beginning. So I'm one of the lead designers of the game.
Great.
And we brought in Greenbrier, and they've made a lot of contributions as well to the project, and that's where we are right now. So I know everything about the game.
Hey, well, then I'm talking to the right man. Okay, so let's get down to it. The basic idea of Folklore the Affliction, or actually, I'm going to start calling it maybe Folklore the Addiction, because the game looks pretty good, man. Like, it's going to get people to really start paying, wanting to get it. So you might get a lot of rabid fans, but
We hope so.
the basic idea to me looks like it takes place in the old world or Europe, maybe. Gothic horror, maybe in the 1600s.
Yeah, early modern, so it's around that time period.
Okay.
There's not, you don't establish a specific date,
Sure.
but it kind of encompasses that time period.
Okay,
1700s.
I got you. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. Now, when I first saw it, I have certain ideas that came to my mind that you may have drew influences from, but tell us a little bit about the genesis of this idea and kind of your influences coming into this and what you kind of wanted the game to encompass.
Sure. So we wanted a game that, well, first off, I'm a big role player as well as my business partner, and our passion is around that. We're both dungeon masters and all that, but we wanted a game that where everybody could play. That you didn't need a dungeon master to run it. So that was kind of the genesis of what we wanted to do. We wanted to create a storytelling game that everybody could participate at an equal level. Okay, so we wouldn't have to have somebody having to be the bad guy and against everybody else.
Sure.
So it's 100% cooperative. So kind of the influences of the game are think about Diablo, the video game, right? So it's not Diablo at all, but when I use that terminology, what I'm kind of getting at is the grit and the oppression that is felt within the land.
Sure.
Of Folklore. So the countryside's plagued with supernatural things that are happening. That the people feel oppressed, they're frightened. A lot of mystery out there. The creatures and so forth aren't necessarily blatant to the populace. It's more things like there's flickering lights in this abandoned castle. Okay, and people are starting to become missing, and there's strange chanting sounds. So things like that. So, but certainly there's also situations where the town, the population is directly. Run into issues with the various things that are happening.
Sure.
So.
Okay. Well, what got me really interested, and maybe this is the video game nerd kind of coming out of me a little bit, you've got a character with a whip, okay?
Yes.
Now, I know your archetype is an archaeologist, so everybody that thinks of a whip and an archaeologist, they're going to think Indiana Jones.
Okay. Yep.
Me, I thought Castlevania, man, because of the setting, and you got this guy with a whip and all this stuff. Did any of it may not be any kind of direct relation at all, but did you ever play Castlevania? Did you?
I did,
yeah.
Absolutely. I was a huge video game player back in the day.
Okay.
So everything from Bard's Tale to all the Infocom games like Zork, and I a lot of experience in that area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't know. I was like, man, oh my God, it's Castlevania, it's Simon Belmont. But then I looked at him and was like, well, He's an archaeologist. There might be a little Indiana Jones in there too, a little bit medieval
Yeah,
Indiana
he's a
Jones.
world explorer. So in a hunt for knowledge, and as he's done this, he's come across the realization that there's significant evil out there,
Sure.
and he's drawn to this land in his hunt for both knowledge, but also in a quest to help
Sure.
rid the land of the afflictions.
Okay, so we'll actually get into some more of these characters in a little bit, but that was the one that kind of grabbed my attention, and then I saw the setting, and so I was like, okay. So, but let's get down to the game mechanics now. Obviously, the setting and stuff is not something unique from the first time ever, but I believe you are actually trying to mix in RPGs and a board game setting together, which is also that's been done before, but there's been mixed results throughout the game industry with that. So. The problems I have seen when games have tried to do that, board games, you end up they want to add in RPG elements, which is fine, but then sometimes the games last 9 hours long, and if you got board game buddies that's not RPG people, they're like, man, I don't, I was like, what's going on? So let's talk about you balancing these elements of RPG and board game settings.
Okay.
Yeah, just tell me how you kind of mixed all that together.
So the game is written kind of like a role playing adventure, right? We have chapters. So the gameplay is around about 120 minutes on average, but they're broken up into chapters. Usually it's about an hour per chapter.
Yeah.
So some stories may even have more chapters, okay, depending on the situation. So we wanted to make it so that it's digestible in easy chunks, and it's not a 9-hour game. Right? It's although some people may like that, right?
Yeah, sure.
But we wanted, to your point, to kind of hit a balance between the board game aspect and the role playing. So you read through a narrative, okay, and it kind of directs you. These are your goals and so forth. But it's not. Most storytelling games out there, the stories themselves are relatively short.
Sure.
Maybe a page. So this is more encompassing. It is multiple pages. It really kind of takes you on a journey. But our main goal was immersion. Okay,
sure.
To really make it feel like you're there. So, but there's a lot of board game aspects as well. There's hundreds of cards, a lot of dice rolling, in various combat mechanics. You have the miniatures,
sure,
where you explore both what we call the world map, which is like an open land setting, and then you dive deep into particular locations, like a haunted forest or a castle or whatnot underneath the earth.
Sure.
And it's then you get down to tactical maps where you do miniature and exploration and puzzle solving.
Sure. Okay. Now, to be clear though, now to try to cater to both sides. Now, we mentioned some players like the big 9-hour epic campaigns, and some people like, look, man, I only need an hour of this stuff, or 2 hours. Your stories, from what I was able to tell from a little bit of the game description and stuff, you do have a campaign setting.
Yes.
But it's not. You can also pick and choose kind of the adventures separately to play, just like a one-off adventure, right?
Yeah. The stories are linked together. Okay, although they're not dependent on each other. Right. So you could, for example, if you, let's say you played the first couple stories and it's been months since you pulled up the box again, and like I don't want to go back. I can't remember where we left off. So I just want to kind of start over, but I don't want to do those stories. You can jump in to any part of the storyline.
Great.
Okay. The base game comes with 6 stories, and through Kickstarter, we actually have more content.
Sure.
But so if you want to jump into the 4th story, the 5th story, you can do that.
Okay.
It gives you guidelines on how to achieve that. Okay?
Great.
But the characters themselves, just like an RPG, they grow along with the stories.
Right.
So as you progress, you would
progress your character
abilities and skills and
sure.
so forth.
So great. Well, let's talk about the stories a little bit more now. The sample story I had, which was like a demo, I think you debuted at a convention somewhere around here. It was a little bit, very short. But you have elements in there to where and I know some people's going to laugh when I say this, but it's like a choose your own adventure. Like you have branching paths. You can choose A
Sure,
or B.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, and the small text adventure I saw was you only had one choice, and then they go and kill the ghost.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming some of your other stories will have more decisions other than just one time. Yeah.
Well, one thing that we really wanted to hit is
Mm-hmm.
this was a thing that people brought up as a concern point early on was replayability.
Yes.
Okay, how much replayability do you have? You know, it comes to 6 stories. Even though you get at least 2 hours out of these things, you know,
Right.
especially if you're learning, right? Some stories are a little bit shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Some stories are a lot longer.
Right.
Okay, so you know, so you have a lot of content there, but we wanted to have it so that you would want to go back and replay to see what would happen if I did this or that. So there's many choose your path moments
Sure.
within stories, some more than others depending on the flow of things.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, that's just one aspect of that. So you know, there's two similar mechanics. One is the choose your path, which
Mm-hmm.
is, you know, you're given a choice of, oh, you're going to do this or that type of
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Sure.
And you know, that would fork things. But there's also something we have called story markers, and there's
Okay.
multiple story markers in the game, and multiple markers can come out in a story,
Mm-hmm.
and those have longer term effects. So let's say you do something that makes you take a story marker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know if that's a good or bad thing that will happen later on. It could be a positive or negative effect. You may have a choice to take the story marker based
Mm-hmm.
on decision you'd make, or just, you know, or maybe something that happens based on a previous action or something
Sure.
like that. But you know, these story markers can have a significant impact on the in-game scenario, so
Oh.
as well as throughout the story.
Great.
So we've tried to put a lot of mixture in there.
Great.
And there's some stories that, I mean, you could there's lots of twists and turns. So you know, stories are linear. You're not going to get away from that, right?
Sure.
But you know, the progression to get to the end state is can vary.
Okay, great. Okay, so now let's delve into a little bit of the game mechanics in terms of dice rolling and stuff. That's going to be the crux of any, well, role playing game or board game. You know, it's going to come down to some dice rolling. Okay, so
Yes.
you know, I've played a lot of games from various publishers and things like that, and the ones that try to market themselves a little bit broader stream, they try to keep their dice to D6s, and for skill checks, you know, you succeed on 5s and 6s, and then you fail on whatever. Your game's a little bit different. I think it's a 10-sided dice you have for the skill checks that I saw. You may have others. I'm not sure.
No, so we have a number of dice. So
Okay.
we have 4s, we have D6s, and we have
Okay.
D10s.
Okay.
Okay. So in the D10s, we also use a percentile system for combat.
Okay.
So it's a little different than a lot of the games out there. So skill checks are done by D10.
Okay.
Every character has skills that they're proficient in, that they have bonuses in.
Sure.
Although every character can use every skill, but you know, some may be more adept at some than others. Like the archaeologist has a starting bonus, a large starting bonus in archaeology. It makes sense, right?
Yeah. Sure.
With the Avenging Madman, he's a farmer, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I know you want to talk about the characters later, so I won't go down there. But
Yeah, that's fine.
the farmer, he has a ecology bonus. Okay, so so you know, so basically roll the d10. You have a target to hit. You have your modifiers. If you meet or beat it, then it's a positive outcome. And if you don't, it's a negative outcome.
Correct.
So there's two paths that can happen there.
Okay, great. So, gotta look at this. Look at my sheet here real fast. Oh yeah, the game master. There's not one.
No.
Yeah, and I've noticed when I read the little stories, you see the choices that you can take. So, is there ways for the players to obviously, if you play them over and over again, you're going to know exactly what's going to come up. But if you don't have a game master and you're playing it for the first time and the players get to see the choices, is there a way that I'm going to basically look here and see what my
obviously you don't read ahead.
Right,
okay?
correct.
But that said, we have a very much a choose your own path or choose your own adventure style of that. So
Right.
basically, they're called story moments.
Sure.
So when you have a choice, it says, "Are you going to do this?"
Mm-hmm.
If you do, then read story moment 50.
Right.
If you do that, then read story moment 14 or whatever.
Which will be on another page, right?
And all the stories are mixed up. So,
Okay.
So you know, Not that I know folks, but it's kind of a classic thing, right?
Yeah,
So,
sure.
but yeah, so if you look at the back of the story moments, you want to know what is what.
Yeah.
So it forces you to kind of look back, but it causes you not to know what or
Sure.
influence your decision.
Great. Okay. So, I guess it requires a little bit of an honor system on the player's part, not to sit there, because we're all honorable people, right?
Live by your choice.
Yeah. So, now,
the other story moments that, like, well, what would have happened? Because obviously, unless we want you to replay that story again and see what happens.
Yeah.
So.
Great. Now, living in Europe, there's game clubs here, there's board game shops and stuff. In Euro games, being a designer, you've heard Euro games and Ameritrash or Ameritrash per se. I've heard it, both ways. But now, here in Europe, the Euro games, you get to watch paint dry and you get to watch grass grow, and you have cubes. And then the America-style games are, they say they're more luck-driven, and there's not much skill involved. Obviously, anytime there's a dice involved, there's going to be a variable of luck. But how much would you say that is there strategy and such involved in your game, or is it, let's just throw the dice out there? So just can you explain? Explain a little bit of that.
Okay, certainly. There's a lot of strategy in combat. Anything else? I mean, we have two combat mechanics. One is more dice rolling, less strategic, but even those require some thought because if you might be in a situation that you're forced to what we call skirmish, which is a dice rolling mechanic.
Sure.
But it's very a dynamic system. There's a lot of uniqueness. It's not just rolling dice. Each creature has unique powers. You have the choice to attack, to defend, and to potentially use skills that you have based depending on the monster or the creature.
Okay, great.
So but with the miniature combat, that's really when the strategic stuff happens. I don't want to story anything with the stories, but there's certainly moments that you have to really put some thought into it.
Great.
I did these 2-hour sections at a Gen Con 2014 for folks, and the kind of the final battle was very dangerous, depending on what happens within the story. It doesn't follow. I mean, the stories themselves can influence the AI of the creatures, basically, as well. So there's certain things happen that you're not expecting them to, and then you really have to strategize how the best way to deal with what's happening.
Sure.
So yeah, certainly it's not just dice rolling.
Okay, great.
Strategic nature and things.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that, for lack of the obvious choice here, combat. And you mentioned the AI of the creatures and stuff. Kind of how, without revealing like the grand scheme of everything, but kind of how does that work? How does the creatures move and so on, or how do they attack if there's nobody else to control them? Basically, it's the players against the game. The game regulates itself. So explain that to us a bit.
It's pretty straightforward, and we're actually taking some suggestions from some of the backers and tweaking things as well to make it even better. But generally, without again, as I mentioned, various things can change AI behavior.
Sure.
But the generic AI behavior is, melee creatures move toward the party. Okay?
Sure.
And there's a role called the controller. It's not a DM because it rotates. Basically, the person to the right of the current leader, and that responsibility rotates as the game progresses. Just rolls the dice and just moves the creature. I'll move them, type of thing, right? Keep track. So they move toward you if there's and then if there's it moves toward the closest characters. So if you have multiple characters who are equal distance and so forth, then there's basically a targeting system that you have to determine who the person that creature's going to go after, and then they do that.
Okay.
Ranged creatures basically they stay where they are unless they're pursued. If you move up next to them on their turn, they're gonna get out of dodge and out of the way.
Sure.
Kind of keep you on the move. and they randomly target anybody in sight. Okay, so you can't really predict who's going to be hit.
Okay.
Now that said, certain creatures go after certain types of characters more often than others, and there's powers. So each creature in an encounter, we call it miniature combat encounters. Each creature has multiple powers that happen, and some attack just one person, some attack everybody, some attack the person that they're targeting, and then adjacent allies of yours, things like that. So you never can tell what's going to happen. It's going to depend on the creature.
Okay. All right, I got one more kind of rules question. We'll kind of get into a little bit more of the aesthetics of the game a little bit, but and I don't want to call out any specific company, but some companies, they're really good making this cool looking game. And all this, and then you have to spend 6 hours setting it up, and then sometimes the rules.
Yes. They're great games.
Yes, but it's almost like a part-time job to get it going for a game night. So I was kind of curious, setup and how heavy is the rules for, like, say, a casual gamer that likes board games. That's not Monopoly. Yeah.
Actually, pretty large. Okay. But it goes into depth on things that aren't necessarily needed for you to go into.
Okay.
So our goal is, or was, to make it so that you could pick it up and play it.
Great.
Without having to go and spend hours reading a rule book.
Sure.
That's your point. Setting it up. Setup itself is not difficult at all. I mean, it takes 10, 15 minutes.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. But one thing that we did for the primer for new players is we created the first story as a tutorial.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So basically, as you go through the story, there's sections that say, you're about to have a skirmish or something, right? What the heck is a skirmish? It basically tells you what to do in the story.
Sure.
So the first story is a little bit longer from a page count because of that, but we felt that it would be a nice thing to do. So basically, our goal was to, maybe look at the rule book. Oh, this is nice. But we have a section of the rules that basically, how to use this manual.
Sure.
And the main point is, you don't have to read the whole thing. What you should do is take the story, start reading it, and the first story, as the tutorial, will walk you through things.
Great.
Okay, so it's really, we wanted you just to be able to just jump right in.
Great.
The story journal refers back to the rules. If you want to go in more depth on certain things and whatnot, but it's pretty straightforward.
Right? I have nightmares sometimes of thinking back to trying to learn Twilight Imperium, like 2nd edition or something.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Sure.
And came very close to ruining some friendships during playing that game. Some people got pretty upset. Yeah. So that's great. It's great to hear that the game is pretty straightforward and at least easy to jump into and stuff. So that's good.
Yeah. I mean, once you start to play, we've ran a lot of people through the game itself without explaining any of the rules. And as soon as you start to get going, and they just pick it up like that. It's really intuitive.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's get a little bit into more of the funner aspect of some things instead of trying to get all rule heavy here. But the characters. Now, I mentioned earlier in the interview the whip guy, the Castlevania guy, and I was like, oh man, that's really cool. But on the other side of that, the other person that struck me as kind of interesting was the Avenging Madman, which really, when you look at the other characters, he's just a basic dude with a hay hook. So let's get into a couple of these. Let's take the basic guy, the Avenging Madman, and then
he's one of my favorites.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask who is your favorite, but
I still remember the day we created him. It's like, this is a good idea. Let's do this. Yes. So he's a farmer, as I mentioned earlier. In simple, he just another townsperson type of thing, right?
Sure.
Although not from the land of folklore. Okay, so he was working at on the farm and all that, and after a hard day's work, he fell asleep in the barn. Okay, and he woke up in the morning. He discovered that his entire family has been slaughtered by what he believes are vampires.
That'll do.
Okay, so and his wife's missing, right? So like he's gone revenge crazy. So he's a very feral type of character. So he's prone to he has a special immunity to being deranged, which is a negative status in the game.
Sure.
Can't be deranged because he really already is deranged.
Correct.
And so there's that, and he has each character has a couple starting abilities, but there's tons of abilities within the game that you can choose from as you build up your character and they grow. But in certain the abilities are coded by keyword. Okay, so each character has a certain number of keywords. The abilities have keywords, and if you have one of those keywords on an ability, you can learn it.
Great.
So there's a couple that are like very unique to him.
Sure.
For example, environmental slaughter, which is actually one of his starting abilities. So using abilities are used by spending what we call power points.
Okay.
So not to get into the mechanics so much, but it's all I can, but we're talking about the characters.
Sure.
But so you spend a power point to activate them, or some of them are passive or whatever. So this one is, if an enemy is killed next to him, he rips off its limb and attacks a nearby enemy with it. So it's a second attack. So
he's an angry man.
he can fight his enemies for a second.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Well,
so some pretty cool stuff. We've had a lot of fun with it.
Well, that's great because I saw that guy, and usually when you see the games like this, all your heroes are in this exotic armor, these exotic weapons, and they're all really like crazy looking. And this guy, it's cool to see a basic man being able to be a hero, or even though he's mad with revenge, but at least he's a common guy that rises up to try to stop the evil going on in the land. So,
yes.
So
and he basically tracked these creatures into the world of the land of folklore. It works.
Great. Well, let's talk about the map a minute now. Not just the map, just the artwork in general of the game. But the map looks very beautiful. Now, it does take place in Europe. Is that the kind of idea?
It's a fictional Eastern European setting.
Okay.
We don't really go into this too much on the game itself, but the land is called Cromel. Okay. So it's a very Eastern European type of setting, and that's kind of where we originated from. Although, there's other geographies and settings that we could talk about a little bit, but
sure.
Certainly that's kind of location. It's not a real place.
Oh no, I got you. So, but yeah, let's talk about some of your settings, what you can talk about anyway. So talk about some of your locations and I guess the aesthetics of all that, and your idea of what the visual aspect you want to come across with your maps and locations.
Yeah, so we want things that were dark and spooky. It's the type of game it is.
Sure.
We want you to be at the edge of your seat and be worried at every turn about what's going to happen. So the locations, we have a lot of castles and some manors, some dark forbidden forests. There's marshes, and there's an area called Deadlands, which are basically kind of like a wasteland type of area, right? And there's tombs that you can get into. There's even stories that take you underneath the earth. Okay?
Sure.
So, but things that we want you to feel kind of boxed in a way, right? Even if you're in the forest, for example, the trees bloom, and it's very very tense. So that's kind of the atmosphere we're going for.
Great. And the creatures, of course, we've got the werewolves, the vampires. It looked like you had like a version of Frankenstein's monster with that golem-looking thing.
Abomination.
Yeah. That
so
thing.
There's 7 creature types. Okay. So there's mortal, because you're going to find people who are not good within the land, just maybe normal folks like highwaymen and so forth, right?
Sure.
Then there's demonic. There's undead. There's spirits. There's occultists.
Yeah.
Like witches and so forth.
Sure.
There's nature. There's I'm trying to remember what I did not say already. And then there's anyways, there's 7 creature types. So and each one has its own flavor to them. So
Great. Okay.
And then there's the afflictions, which are in essence creatures, right? They follow the same dynamic in terms of the 7, but they're basically the bosses. They're the main guys are unique. You're not going to randomly encounter an affliction, for example. It's something that you're going to run into, like a Therian Changer, which is a werewolf affliction that's been recently unlocked. So so good, all good stuff.
Okay, great. Now, what is again? I don't know what everything you have revealed about the game or whatever, but what is one thing that you think that you could talk about when a player sits down with this game? There's going to be something in this game that surprises them. That's going to make them, oh man, this makes this game awesome. Is there any kind of mechanic, anything that's going to jump out at them that this is worth the money I spent on this game?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I'm really proud of is our ghost mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so basically, this is a scary land. I mentioned that we wanted things to be tense.
Mm-hmm.
We want this to be, you don't know if you're going to make it or not. We want it to be kind of in that state, and so it's dangerous, and there's a good chance that some people may die. Okay, but we didn't want to make it such that oh great, now I'm going to have to sit here and wait for everybody to finish playing. Sure. So we actually, when you die, you become a ghost. Oh. And so but the kind of the neat thing with this is that you're not really dead. So the land of folklore, basically, it's the veil between this land and the next, the other world, so to speak, is thin. Okay, so those who have a strong will and a personality and so forth can manifest. Okay, and that's why you can act as a ghost. And just like you encounter spirits, you could become a spirit yourself in that capacity. But when you're a ghost, you're not quite dead. You're still attached to your body by a cord, right? So you can be resuscitated by a physician back in town if you can get back there, right? And while you're a ghost, every character has unique ghost powers. There's a couple that are common.
Sure.
But like energy drain and things like that. But each one really has a lot of uniqueness that they can do. And so you can fight, just like you fight spirits. You can fight other things. It's dangerous because as you if you're hit, for example, with as a ghost, you have something called ghost points. So that's your spiritual energy, and you can spend that spiritual energy to use special abilities. But it's also your health. So as your spiritual energy diminishes to nothing, there's danger there.
You're dead. Are you dead then?
Well, so no. It's still not the end.
Oh, okay.
But you are out of the picture for the short term. So
okay.
So if you die, and this is true even if the entire party dies, because there's let's say you're at the final battle and everybody dies, and what happens? How do we continue? So there's success and failure conditions based on that, and things can impact future stories.
Great.
So, but if you make it back, when you get back to town, if you go to limbo, we call it, and lost all those ghost points, you can be brought back by the gypsies. Okay, and they'll do it for free, kind of.
No gypsy does that.
Well, you have to draw a tarot card.
Oh,
okay, so the game are tarot cards. And it's basically something that's attached to your character permanently, kind of. Okay. You can get rid of it in certain ways, but it's basically a negative thing. Yeah. Like, oh, you can't have companions, or when you die, you don't become a ghost; you go right to limbo.
Oh,
things like, or you really don't want
to
have any. So none of them are good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of bad things that can happen to you in the game. You can become filled with bloodlust, bitten by a vampire, and basically you become really vampiric in a way, right? Not full vampire, but you're kind of partially tainted. You can become lycanthropic, where I mentioned the whole skirmishing stuff before. Well, there's certain cards and events that can occur within the game that can force you to lose control if you're lycanthropic. Okay. And certain creatures can induce this too if you're in that state. So lycanthropic is actually a blessing and a curse. Because the blessing is that you actually are faster and you're tougher, right? Sure. So it's a good thing to have in a way, except when you have to fight your own allies because you lose control, or the fact that you can't carry silver which is all the currency, so you can't gain coin awards and things like that. So there's lots of goodness.
Well, man, the game sounds really great, and I don't want to keep you on here too long. We've talked quite a bit, but before we get out of here, I'll leave the final words up to you, and anything you want to tell anybody out there, your Kickstarter backers or anything like that, man. Just let us know.
Yeah, well, we just appreciate all the support. I mean, we would not have gotten this far without the fans out there. So we've had a lot of great presence at the cons. A lot of people have really liked what they've seen. Those who've played the game and demoed it, they've stuck with us, and we're seeing that how good the game is, and they're very excited. We have a great partnership with a number of folks.
Great.
The Adam and Brady Sadler, for example, who designed Descent, second edition, the Warhammer Plus card game. They're collaborating with us, and they're actually writing the second story journal, six stories. So they're I think there's 6 anyway. But it's so we have a lot of great things. We're partnered with Ed Greenwood, who is writing a series of novels for us. Him and his consortium, the Ed Greenwood Group.
Yep.
And if you're Dungeons and Dragons,
Forgotten Realms, yeah.
Yeah. So he's and that's a done deal. I mean, the first book he's writing is coming out in October of next year.
Great.
So a lot of good stuff happening, but without your support and all the gamers out there, none of that would have happened. So just really appreciate it.
Well,
so
great.
if you haven't checked out the Kickstarter, check it out, and just appreciate promoting as much as you can.
Sure. All right. Well, Will, I'll make sure I'll put all the links in the video description on YouTube, and let everybody know about it. I'll post it here in Finland. And Will, I really appreciate the time, and hope you have a great day, man.
Thanks, DJ.
No problem.